You're about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
And we are back at the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877-Doc-Dolly. 1-877-DOCDALI. So happy 4th of July weekend. I am so ready. And one of the biggest things I love about 4th of July are the fireworks. And this is a super special 4th of July because this is America's 250th birthday. I was really, really little, so I don't remember much about 1976. Yeah, I'm that old, 1776. But all I remember, there were flags everywhere and everybody was all excited and celebrating and, complaining about gas prices. But I remember they were all excited about the 4th of July. A little different this year. You have a lot of polarity, but for those of us that understand that we are one of the best countries in the whole entire universe, and the freedoms we have unmatch what they have everywhere else. It's a big day. And so we celebrate with fireworks, and fireworks are fantastic, but they can be very dangerous. We have tens of thousands of injuries that happen every year. Car injuries, fires. I mean, there's the list goes on, and we're just going to review those really quickly. So I want to make sure that you guys play it safe when you enjoy your fireworks this 4th of July. Yeah, I got my little stars and stripes thing, so you're going to be hearing some banging around. All right, so how were fireworks discovered, or when did they start? So we believe the Chinese get the credit for China started them back in 200 BC. According to History.com, they would roast bamboo, which explodes with a bang when heated because there's these hollow air pockets. And they did that to ward off evil spirits. And at some point between 600 and 900 AD, Chinese alchemists, maybe hoping to discover an elixir for immortality, mixed together saltpeter, which we use potassium nitrate to, decrease sex drive, or we used to, charcoal, sulfur, and other ingredients to kind of make a form of gunpowder. Then they would stuff that into the bamboo shoots, that would cause a big fire, big blast. And they believe that roughly between 600 and 900 AD might have been when the first fireworks were used and appeared. Now, we've been using fireworks since our inception. Back on July 3rd, 1776, John Adams wrote a letter to his wife. I guess that's what you did. You know how now we text our spouses? I guess he penned a letter to his wife suggesting that fireworks or illuminations be used to celebrate the upcoming Independence Day. And then the next day, the Continental Congress adopted the Declaration of Independence. That's why July 4th is our day of independence. The following year, they used fireworks in Philadelphia's celebration of Independence Day along with the parade. So somebody could actually say that whether they use the eliminations or not in 1776, by 1777, we've been doing them ever since. Now, are all fireworks legal? Of course not. We have illegal ones. I think Massachusetts is the only state that bans anybody from owning or setting them off. I don't know if that law still stands. I have to double check. But in other states, the laws may vary, so know your laws. For most states, using party poppers, smokers, handheld sparklers, wheel, ground spinners are approved. But be careful. They have to be approved by the Consumer Product Safety Commission in your state. Illegal fireworks are your rockets, Roman candles, wire, wooden sparklers, projectile fireworks, those using arsenic, phosphorus, thiocyanates, and gunpowder. Probably not going to be allowed to use those. So how many people are getting injured with fireworks? According to the National Fire Protection Association, fireworks started an estimated of 34,000 fires in 2024, including 3,200 structure fires, 857 vehicle fires, 29,000 outside fires, and then 450 of them were unclassified. Apparently, they caused 59 civilian injuries and almost $100 million in property damage. Thank God, no deaths in 2024. But the hospital emergency rooms treated an estimated 14,700 people for firework-related injuries. I do telemedicine for a company, and every year we get people who burn themselves. And I'm like, why didn't you go to the ER? This could be a third degree or a full thickness burn. Get yourself to the ER. Let me see what other statistics we have. So the majority of hospital visits treated burns that affected the hands. 35% of them were hands and fingers, 8% legs, 5% arms. But get this, 22% was the face. In fact, one of my brother's nephews by marriage, they were doing these just legal sparklers on the ground, and one hit a rock, ricocheted, and hit the boy in the eye, and he lost his cornea. So he's blind in one eye from fireworks. Children younger than 15 years of age accounted for 32% of the estimated 2023 injuries. We don't have 2025 data. So, interestingly, even though the Roman candles and the big ones seem to be, very damaging, what unfortunately affects people more are the handheld sparklers, because people use them more. They're more legal in most states. And so we see more injuries with the sparklers. Not that the sparklers are more dangerous, it's just the numbers are there. And so these sparklers can reach up to 2,000 degrees. So a 2,000 degree sparkler can cause burns, eye injuries, facial injuries, hearing loss, lacerations, even people, broken bones, sprains, even car accidents. So burns are the majority of injuries. So don't purchase or use illegal fireworks or ones that look like they were handmade. Don't let your kids touch the fireworks. Use neighborhood areas that are not in the flow of traffic. Try to maybe cone it off. You could do a big block party in maybe a cul-de-sac or in an apartment area, but make sure you block off traffic, because these kids are running around the street. While you're trying to deal with a fire emergency, your kid could be running around at night, and get in a car's path. Have buckets of water and fire extinguishers nearby. Make sure bystanders back up. Remember, they could be in the line of danger of those handling the fireworks. Everybody wants to be like, well, yeah, I'll do this with you. I'll do this with you. Just back the hell up. Just have that one person there and make sure you got the fire extinguisher and water ready. Never relight a firework. I know they're expensive, and you're like, I just spent $5 on one firework. Just don't relight it, just like with condoms. Don't reuse them. Dispose of the fireworks after thoroughly dousing them with water in a bucket or hose. Don't put them in your pockets. Don't shoot them out of metal or glass casings. A professional firework show, pretty good. And careful using hand sanitizer. If you're a big hand sanitizer, like, oh, I just touched that firework, now you could be flammable. Happy 4th of July, everybody. 1-877-DOLLY.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit, and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799 and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
diesel fuel cetane levels.
In many states, the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts. Due to a cleaner burn, there are less hydrocarbons and particulate matter in your exhaust. This reduces the blockage of your diesel particulate filter. Using Diesel Extreme generates 83% less DPF regeneration. The 6-in-1 Diesel Extreme formula also includes the most concentrated detergent on the market, lubricity enhancer, water demulsifier, rust and corrosion inhibitors, and a fuel stabilizer.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877 Doc Dolly, 1-877 DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to all of you for tuning in. We really, really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Dr. Dahlia, Facebook, The Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube. Click like and subscribe. So many places are incurring a heat wave, and I live in Las Vegas, Nevada. I grew up in Vegas. I grew up in Phoenix. I was born in LA, but I'm not immune to hot weather. And I can't complain because we don't have the humidity. I was in Iowa for a little bit last summer. I just came back from New York, and I was telling myself both times I couldn't wait to get back to Vegas to cool off. That's because when we don't have the humidity, the dry heat for me is so much easier to deal with than heat with humidity. And it was pretty rough. I walked about 20 miles the other day in New York City, and I was trying to find shade. I was getting really dehydrated. I was starting to feel heat illness. I mean, it's a major heat dome that's affecting multiple parts of the country, especially back east. So, and then don't get me started on Europe and what's going on over there. Many of those places don't have air conditioning because they used to not need air conditioning. And I mean, in America, we take air conditioning for granted. In fact, in New York City, Mayor Zohran Mamdani had, I believe, made new rules saying tenant landlords have to make sure that all rooms have access to air conditioning. I take that for granted because everywhere you go, there's air conditioning. I mean, I remember my mom growing up in swamp cooler days, but usually by the 70s and 80s, the our homes and apartments, had it. But then again, I lived in areas where it was very, very necessary. But Mamdani is getting some criticism because he had wanted to weigh in on what's going on with the grid. And apparently he is asking everybody to keep their thermostats at 78 degrees and not lower. And so he said it himself, although I don't know necessarily if Gracie Mansion and City Hall is really staying at 78 degrees. And so him recommending that everybody move to 78 degrees is a little bit of a concern. Because with seniors, we don't recommend 78 is the upper limit. We recommend for seniors to make sure they have, their ambient temperature and anywhere from maybe 68 to 78 degrees. So now people are saying, well, wait a second, you're telling everybody to the max you could go down is 78. And you have seniors that could get sick. And so, yeah, I mean, Mamdani is one of those mayors where you have some people who love him and think that socialism is the way to go. And then you have other people going, I can't believe this guy got elected. And when I was in New York, people were not happy. You heard people complain about him. In fact, they didn't call him Mayor Mamdani. You would hear them use an expletive, that blanking Mamdani. And I never met the guy. I don't like that he, what he has suggested is outright lies, because there's no way that you are going to be able to have enough tax dollars for free buses, free healthcare, all the freebies he's asking. So I think that was a little bit unethical because you're promising everything to get elected. And then he's like, well, you know what? At the end of my term, you'll start to see the free buses. You're like, really? Yeah, because they're going to fail, or you're going to have homeless people use them for a home, and the average New Yorker isn't going to use the buses, and then it's a mess. So I'm not to mention he wasn't there to celebrate Israel's independence, and he's anti-Israel. So I'm no fan of his. But when it comes to air conditioning, that is kind of a little bit of a concern. Yeah, he wrote, if you have an older loved one, friend, or neighbor, check in with them today. Make sure they're staying hydrated. Spend time in the air-conditioned spaces whenever possible, and know where to find the nearest cooling center. And I guess they opened up the pool. When I was there, you only had little water stations at the park. You didn't really have water stations anywhere else because the city infrastructure doesn't necessarily allow for that. But the shade. If you've ever been out in the sun. Where I live in Nevada, they wanted to conserve water. So desert landscaping really has started to become very, very sparse in terms of how much greenery. Well, now our city officials are trying to figure out how to now plant more trees. because there's just not enough shade. At least, in New York City, there were some skyscrapers. So if I was on one side of the avenue walking down and the sun was hitting it, I would just cross. And then this way I could walk on the shaded side and save myself 10, 20 degrees. But in the EU or in Europe, they really, really struggle. And I've been there now twice during the summer, and it's pretty hot and pretty unbearable. Now, maybe it's because I'm not indoors, because I'm outside looking at the Roman Colosseum or going through Pompeii or trying to see the Eiffel Tower. But I got to tell you, I mean, it was hot. And then wherever you stay, if you get an Airbnb or VRBO or whatever, most places don't have air conditioning because these units were built hundreds of years ago and then refurbished and maybe repainted and things like that. But you don't necessarily have central air conditioning. And one of the reasons this is still stalled, even in 2026, is we're being told that the EU is very, very strict about climate change. And they say that the CO2 gas emissions from using air conditioning can hurt the climate. But then you wonder what happens when you have, 1,000 people have already died in Europe because of the heat. So apparently in Europe, air conditioning is very, very divisive. People are fighting over that. They think it's going to worsen the global climate crisis. And so my answer to that is climate is always changing. And if Europe has all these years, avoided, using air conditioning, and the average temperatures are going up 1 degree per year, then maybe it's something else that's causing the rise in temperatures and not necessarily air conditioning, because there's your experiment. They held off putting air conditioning in most people's apartments and facilities, and it didn't help because the temperatures are still rising. And now you're having people dying of heat illness. So USA Today is saying research is showing that air conditioning is the single most effective way to prevent heat-related deaths, especially for vulnerable populations like elderly and children. But they say the technology can raise greenhouse gas emissions and has been shown to increase temperatures in cities where it's widely used. So left-leaning officials across Europe, according to USA Today, have cited the inefficiency of AC units and argued for a more holistic approach to address the problem, including cooling centers and flexible work hours. So flexible work hours, again, where, why don't you guys work at night or work in the middle of the night when it's cooler so you don't have to be walking around during the day and you can stay in bed. That's nice, but I don't think it's very practical for people to, switch to shift to graveyard shift, especially when now you need the restaurants open and you need the gas stations, you need everything else open in the middle of the night. Plus, it's hard to sleep. It's interesting. When I'm recommending, when people have insomnia, when they struggle to sleep, I recommend that they put their temperature in their house to 68 degrees. Now, I'm not doing that to try to hurt the environment. I'm doing it because if you don't sleep, now you're up. If you're up, you might be driving around, getting in your car. You might be, eating a burger, which people say hurts the climate. Although I honestly really struggle with that one too. I'm going to eat my burgers. Okay, I'll protect the environment by not spraying hairspray. I think that hurts the environment more than your hamburger. But if people aren't asleep, that's going to hurt the environment more. So if you need to lower the temperature to sleep and lowering the temperature to 68 degrees, that's, I think, even better for the environment. But when it's hot and you can't sleep, you're just sitting there and it's miserable. In fact, what a lot of people are doing is then going to water to cool off. So when I was in Europe, it was so hot, I took a lukewarm shower. So so I would cool off in the water because I can't take a cold shower. And I really like hot showers. So now what am I doing? I'm using water to cool off. People are using water, cool rags, or jumping into water. They're jumping into the Seine River, the Thames, they're and that I think can be worse for the environment. So, I'm not here to tackle, the European Union's issues. But as a physician, you need people to have access to air conditioning and fans. And as I told you guys, check your air conditioning in the winter to make sure it's working. Check to make sure it's working in the early spring, because I can't tell you, every year people will turn it on. They wait as long as possible. So they turn it on in May and June and they're like, it's not working. And then, getting a repair person is very, very expensive and that could take days. And right now we're in the thick of it. But to see air conditioning such an issue from global warming, I mean, And like I said, we got to be really, really careful because when you ask AI how to deal with climate change and global warming, they're going to suggest fewer people. They're going to suggest population control, limiting the population because the population is hurting the environment. And so I really worry that you have all these deaths going on, heat-related deaths across the globe, and you don't have leaders going, all right, let's get some air conditioning going. 1-877-Doc-Dolly, don't go away. Dr. Dahlia here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
We are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877-Doc-Dolly, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So many of the headlines out there is talking about how Americans are losing their patriotism. Where on the Republican side, 93% feel very patriotic and very grateful to be Americans. And then on the Democrat side, you're seeing numbers in the 30s and below. And that's frightening to me. And remember, I'm biased. I love America a lot. I'm biased because I had family slaughtered in the Holocaust. And so when my family had to escape Germany, escape Austria, the ones in Poland didn't escape. They got killed. I think the ones in Russia got killed. But when my family was able to escape, they couldn't come to America because at the time America was not, allowing refugees. They had to then go to Israel. It was Palestine at the time. Then it got its independence. Israel got its independence from the British in 1948. And so thank God there was a country for them to go to. And then about maybe they got there in their, I think, late 30s, early 40s. So about 25 years later, they were able to finally come to America. It took 25 years for America to finally take us, but thank God. And then my grandparents and my father were able to come, take the test, learn the language, take the classes, become full-fledged citizens. And then my dad later married my mom and then had me and my brothers. And I have an older sister with my mom. So so for me, I'm biased because I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, the Holocaust will not happen if you're in America. Okay, nobody is going to kill you if you're a Jew. I also thought nobody was going to turn you away or attack you, or not allow you to go to a college class or have a cup of coffee. Didn't think that would happen, although in America, they're starting to allow that to happen, which we've got to stop and nip in the bud. But still, despite that, America is still, to me, one of the most amazing countries. So when you hear people go, they don't like America, they can't stand America, you're like, oh my gosh, if you were a woman in Afghanistan, you can't go to school. I mean, how many times do we hear of women in the Middle East get, raped and attacked, or, it's not because that's the way things are done. It's just we in America, we are more on top of, crime and rights, etc. I mean, if you're LGBTQ in Gaza, you can't be. And in Israel, you can. And there's very few countries where you could be who you can be. And America is one of them. And so I'm very, very grateful. But unfortunately, you're seeing this divide because I think it's individuals who don't like that they lost the last election. And I find that kind of faltering because, for those people who didn't like Bush or didn't like Al Gore, everybody still used an American flag, celebrated the country. For those people who didn't like Obama, they still had the American flag, and celebrated 4th of July. If they didn't like Trump in 2016, we celebrated 4th of July. So depending on who the president is, it shouldn't matter. We still celebrate the birth of our country. And mind you, we've had issues, and, we have not been fair to everybody, and we have not treated everybody equally. But we are progressing. We're getting better and better. We're doing way better than other countries in terms of rights and in terms of equality and diversity. But we're celebrating the freedom we have. That's why you see all this. Let freedom ring. The Statue of Liberty. We are a beacon of freedom. We are a beacon of being able to have our hair out if we want to, of being able to walk down the street without fear of getting attacked. Or stoned, or we could say who we want to vote for, and we could vote in an election, and we have a vote. Some people have multiple votes, depending on what mail-in ballots they are able to capture. But we at least get one vote, whereas in many other places they don't. And I mean, look at the work it took to get women to vote, to stop segregation, to bring us our freedoms, and it took 250 years, and it's still going to take more. So that's what we're celebrating. But I get nervous because, and maybe it's because I don't know if I'm superstitious, but when you are lucky, and then you poop or throw smack on that luckiness you have, you could lose it. I mean, why will God or nature or karma go your way if you're not appreciating what you have? And so when this kind of makes me, cringe when you hear that people are like, oh no, I have no pride in our country. In fact, there's a poll from Cato Institute that just came out saying they looked at 2,200 Americans, 46% don't know what America's 250th anniversary commemorates. Really? A little more than half correctly answered that it was the adoption of the Declaration of Independence. However, in the Cato poll, 86% were grateful, 79% were proud to be Americans. Now, about 61% thought America was the land of opportunity. Even more believe the American dream is available. So what many people say, well, the American dream is gone. Well, that doesn't mean you're not patriotic. Thinking that if you work hard, you'll be able to get a job and you'll be able to buy a house and you'll be able to, live without needing the government dime. That's starting to falter even more for a lot of people. But the American dream and being able to have a house, that's not what makes you patriotic. For me, it's you won't have somebody round you up and kill you and exterminate you. That's what America is, and many people will cite, well, it's the illegal immigrants and deporting the illegal immigrants. Well, if you read the deportation laws with other countries, they're even stricter. I mean, in Canada, they don't mess around. You're out. In Japan, you're out. In Germany, you're out. So, I mean, we have been very, very lax in terms of immigration. I mean, for my family, it took 20 some years for us to finally get approved. But with many others, they were able to get in when Biden opened the doors. And then, if they aren't following the rules and going to their court dates, and then they will, as with any other country, sadly, that's what the deportation laws are in most of the countries across the globe. And so for you to dislike America and the freedom that you have, that's a little displaced. You could be upset that somebody who came in, because the people, may think, look, Biden gave them a mulligan. So if Biden opened up the gates, we can't deport them because Biden's the one that let them in. I don't care where you stand on the subject. That's not for us to debate. But for you to despise being American and to hate America as a result of, the way two presidents are addressing the border is very, very displaced. And I really urge you to go to other countries or talk to people of other countries. What I think is going to help with our patriotism is the World Cup and all these Moroccans and Portuguese and Spaniards and people from, Italy, Italians and all that. You see all these people coming over to America going, wow, this is nice. Yeah, you guys have it nice. And that's why I always told my children, I go, thank God for what you have. You could be grumpy about something, but, you could be in another country right now and starving or not having access. You could be in the Democratic Republic of Congo trying to fight your Ebola that you've been exposed to while militias are attacking your clinic. That doesn't happen here in America. And I'm not, it's not my job to make people love America. If you don't love America, leave. You have a choice. And some people do prefer other countries. And go be it. That's your choice. But if you are going to be still here and benefiting from the freedom our men and women are providing you from the military, our legislators, Democrat and Republicans are, and you're still, going, well, I don't like you and I don't appreciate it and that's not cool. Not cool. And if people died for your freedom, for you to be able to vote, for you to be able to go to school as a woman, for you to be able to compete in sports, for you to be able to walk to a grocery store safely and be able to purchase groceries, that's to me, the freedoms we have and the freedoms for us to choose and vote who we want to vote for and express our beliefs is gold. And I would never poop on that. 1-877 Doc Dolly, don't go away.
Hey guys, it's Clyde. We've had a lot of requests for Ground Zero merchandise, so we put together an online store with a big variety of high-quality items. I'm really excited to let you know about these things. We have a lot to offer you and your loved ones. In addition to our regular apparel, such as t-shirts, beanies, hoodies, and hats, we've expanded our product line with posters, flags, aprons, mugs, and a whole lot more. We also have Ground Zero collectibles along with a limited edition of items like a Clyde Lewis canvas portrait, a Ground Zero embroidered jacket that will certainly make for great gifts and for interesting conversations with family and friends. And we now offer publications such as Ron Patton's book about mind control, MK Zine, and back copies of the official magazine of Ground Zero while it was in print. Paranoia, the Conspiracy Reader, also coming in 2023, are updated and revised books that I've written. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. So shop today at our official store by going to groundzeromerch.com. Again, that's groundzeromerch.com.
Hey, America. How tired are you of mainstream corporate media's biased narratives and manipulated news? Their dishonesty and attempts to influence this generation have been exposed, put on display for anyone who's even half paying attention. But the New American Magazine has been an honest source of news and commentary for over 50 years. This is your opportunity to receive the stalwart of principled journalism at a deep discount. Picture a beautifully published magazine arriving at your doorstep twice a month, packed with insightful stories written with integrity. It's also available digitally on the New American's mobile app. Get up to speed with intelligent coverage from a freedom perspective. Right now, for a limited time, the New American is available to radio listeners at a 25% discount on a new subscription. Visit thenewamerican.com/radio25 and receive 25% off. Subscribe today at thenewamerican.com/radio25.
And we're back on the Dr. Dolly Show, 1-877 Doc Dolly, 1-877 DOCDALI. So life expectancy is rising. Our death rate is at a record low, according to the CDC. It's pretty cool. And we have had some huge medical advancements. And so while we're celebrating America's 250, we keep looking back at pictures of the founding fathers and of people in the 1700s and in war and the drawings and the caricatures and all that. And so I always think about what happened medically back then. We've talked about the advancements we've had in terms of, Civil War was when we started to use gurneys to get people off the field and get, and we actually really started to embrace and use those antibiotics during World War II. So there's a lot of different watershed moments where medical advancements grew out of need. But this article caught my eye. What did Americans die of in 1776? So what were some of their biggest fears? Because they didn't have Ebola at the time. They didn't have fentanyl. So obviously smallpox was a biggie. And that's why the smallpox vaccine was invented, to try to prevent people from, dying from this very, very vicious virus. At the time, it had a 30% fatality rate, causing fever and blistering rash. The vaccine came out at the end of the 1700s. And so, according to Fox News, historians estimate that the North American epidemic killed about 100 to 130,000 people over several years. Tuberculosis or consumption, we spoke about that. We didn't have antibiotics at the time, so our lungs would get consumed. There's also miliary TB that can affect other parts of the body. And tuberculosis was vicious. And when people got tuberculosis, it spread, prevented them from breathing. They went into respiratory failure and unfortunately died. Very fatal during the 1700s. Dysentery and diarrheal disease. So people would get, when they got, now for us, maybe we'll get norovirus or hepatitis, and they probably had forms of that too, but their dysentery would cause severe diarrhea, severe dehydration. We didn't have IV fluids at the time. IV fluids didn't come out till the 1800s. Poor sanitation, contaminated food, the military camps. Unfortunately, when people would get this, if they didn't hydrate, they could die. So dysentery was, in fact, many people in the Holocaust who weren't exterminated died of dysentery because of the conditions, where they weren't eating and then they had diarrhea and were sick, couldn't eat and couldn't get their fluids up. Malaria was a big one back then, too. Apparently, the southern colonies, malaria causing recurrent fever, chills, and that was pretty endemic, according to the CDC. Yellow fever was another one which could cause liver failure and bleeding, making the person look yellow, also mosquito-borne. Jaundice and liver failure can make somebody appear yellow. There were periodic epidemics that struck the colonial port cities back in the late 1700s. And then typhoid. Typhoid is a bacterial infection, also spread between food and water, and that happened when sanitation was poor. And then just childbirth. I was so lucky to be able to give birth to both of my sons now, because if I was pregnant with them in the 1700s, they wouldn't have made it. I had complications with both at the near end, and thank God for modern medical advancement, I got my two babies. And so back then, there could be maternal hemorrhage from abrupto placenta, tearing, the baby the baby being stuck and not being able to deliver, retained placenta infection. So that was pretty bad. And so the major cause of death of women of childbearing age was labor. And then wound infections were big because we didn't have antibiotics. And so when people got hurt, even though they knew at the time to try to sew the wound together, they had that medical technology and knowledge. But these wounds, they didn't know about sterilization, and bacteria and germs, and they didn't. I mean, they assumed there was something, but in terms of, well, we're going to sterilize, we're going to use this sterile needle, so they didn't at the time. And then, of course, infant mortality. It was very common for children to die before age 1. 10 to 30% of babies never made it to their first birthday in colonial communities, according to historical records. So we didn't have good surgical techniques. We didn't have antibiotics. We had fewer vaccines. We didn't understand the germ theory. Not a lot of hospitals, limited access to hospitals. We didn't have safe drinking water, modern sewage systems, refrigeration, air conditioning during the heat. We didn't have blood transfusions, anesthesia, etc. By the time the 1900s came, this is also interesting. The U.S. Census Bureau had started to do national mortality statistics by 1900. So in the early 1900s, viral flu, bacterial, lung, pneumonia, these were responsible for 40,000 to 65,000 deaths per year between the period of 1900 and 1910. Tuberculosis was still taking tens of thousands of years. Diarrhea and enteritis also. Heart disease. Diseases affecting the heart and circulatory system were killing about 27,000 to 40,000 Americans per year at that time. Strokes as well. interrupting blood flow to the brain, or a bleed in the brain. Took 20 to 30,000 lives annually. Also, data shows that kidney diseases that impaired kidney function, killed between 17,000 and 25,000 Americans at the time. And then accidents, unintentional injuries at work, home, transportation, killed an average of 20,000 Americans. And then cancer. We knew about cancer. We didn't know how to treat it back then, but they said cancer contributed to about 13,000 to 20,000 deaths annually at that time. Still less than heart disease like it is now. Senility, they called it senility, being senile, when you lost your mental cognition. And that would cause death in 12,000 to 18,000 people per year. And then diphtheria caused a really, really bad throat infection that blocked the airway, and that caused about 8 to 12,000 deaths per year. Now we have vaccines for that. But they said 1/3 of all deaths were caused by pneumonia, tuberculosis, and diarrhea. 30% of all deaths occurred in children under age 5. So, I mean, we did good back, I think in the 80s. Smallpox finally got eradicated. So we still have the ability to treat. We still have a vaccine, which we use for Mpox. But now that we have cleaner sanitation and hospitals and doctors and nurses and nurse practitioners, and I mean, just what we've been able to do is amazing. And then, we talked about medical advancements. What were some of the best advancements, most important? I think anesthesia was huge. Antibiotics. Having penicillin in the 1940s to be given to soldiers, that was huge. It was discovered earlier than then, but it was widespread used for that would affect pneumonia, strep infections, wound infections, sepsis, etc. We've advanced our ability to save women who are hemorrhaging. So where are we now in terms of leading causes of death? Well, heart disease is still the leading one. Now, especially with the numbers rising, of how many people we have, back in 2024, we lost 638,000 Americans to coronary artery disease and heart attacks. We lost 619,000 people due to cancer in 2024. Unintentional injuries like motor vehicle accidents, drug overdoses, falls, accidental deaths, 197,000 in 2024. Stroke claimed 166,000 Americans. Chronic lower respiratory disease like COPD, emphysema, bronchitis killed about 145,000. Alzheimer's killed 116,000. Diabetes, 94,000. Kidney disease, 55,000. Liver disease, 52,000. Suicide, death by intentional self-harm, claimed 48,000 lives. I think that number is even underestimated because many individuals who are found dead might be thought, well, maybe they overdosed and it was accidental when it could have been purposefully. One really good article I want you guys to look at comes from Harvard, where they look at the American medical advancements, like the intra-aortic balloon catheter back in 1969, the PET scan discovered in 1970, non-invasive fetal heart monitoring in 73, prenatal DNA sequencing by 1978, making discoveries where now we can save people with HIV and AIDS, artificial skin in 81. So definitely look that up. A lot to learn. Happy birthday, America. 1-877 Doc Dolly.
Looking for an easy read that can actually help secure someone's future? Pick up a copy of Mark Falter's book, Common Sense Income Strategies. For the past 30-plus years, Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. It's not rocket science, it's a pretty easy read. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. Common Sense Income Strategies is available now on Amazon or by calling 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Common Sense Income Strategies by financial fitness show host Mark Falter. Secure your financial future today.